Over a period of 12 years, 300,000 people were killed. Vivisections were performed on living subjects. Freezing and thawing experiments were conducted. They were infected with biological weapons. Unit 731 was even more ruthless than Nazi camps. So why have you never heard of it? Or why isn't it known or talked about? To find out what happened to those who conducted these experiments, don't watch the video until the end, and don't forget to follow for support. 1932, Manchuria. In these lands occupied by Japan, a unit was established that was introduced to the world as the Kanto Army Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Unit. Its official name was Unit 731. Its commander was a microbiologist named Dr. Shiro Ishii. Ishii was a super-intelligent graduate of Tokyo Imperial University. But he was also a psychopathic murderer. His sole purpose, to develop biological weapons to make Japan an empire that would rule the world. The headquarters of Unit 731 was established near Harbin. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary research complex. But what happened inside wrote one of the darkest pages in human history. Unit 731's first victims were local Chinese farmers. The Japanese called them maruta, meaning logs, because they didn't see them as human. The experiments that began in 1933 were systematic. Dr. Ishii's method had 4 stages. In the collection phase, Chinese civilians, prisoners brought from Korea, and even Russian prisoners of war were gathered under the pretext of vaccination campaigns. In the classification phase, they were divided into groups according to age, gender, and physical condition. In the experiment phase, each group was subjected to different experiments. When it came to disposal, when the experiments were finished, the victims were killed and their bodies burned. In the early years, 200 people were killed per month. When the Sino-Japanese War began in 1937, this number rose to 600 per month. One of Unit 731's most horrific experiments was the freezing and thawing tests. The goal was to find ways to protect Japan's soldiers who would fight in Siberia against freezing. Victims were taken outside naked on winter days and kept there until their arms and legs froze. Then, different thawing methods were tried. According to the testimony of a surviving Japanese technician in the 1980s, the arms would freeze so hard that when you hit them with sticks, they made a drumming sound. Then they would try to thaw them with hot water, fire, even boiling oil. Most people couldn't withstand this torture and died. Approximately 1,500 people were killed in these experiments. Most were children and women. Unit 731's most brutal practice was vivisection on living subjects. Victims were operated on without anesthesia, their organs removed while they were still alive. Dr. Ishii's goal was to observe the body's reactions when infected with biological weapons. For this, victims were first infected with deadly diseases such as plague, cholera, and anthrax. Then the disease's effects on the body were examined while they were still alive. In the 1990 confession of former Unit 731 surgeon Dr. Ken Yuasa, there were these horrifying details. We infected a Chinese farmer with plague bacteria. 3 days later, we opened his abdomen. The man was still alive, breathing. We saw how the bacteria spread through the internal organs. We continued the operation until his heart stopped. More than 15,000 people were killed in such experiments. The most merciless aspect of Unit 731 was using children as test subjects. Chinese families were deceived with the pretext of a child vaccination program, and children were taken to the laboratory. Special growth hormone experiments were conducted on children aged 3 to 12. The goal was to find hormones that could be used to increase the physical superiority of the Japanese race. Children were made to grow with different chemicals, and the deformities that occurred in their bodies were recorded. None survived. But perhaps the most painful part of this story is the statements of Japanese women who worked as nurses at Unit 731. Nurse Sato Taniguchi, in her 1995 testimony, said these words, "I was only 19 years old. They told us, you're treating patients. On the first day, I saw a Chinese child, about 7 years old. His body was riddled with holes. He was in terrible pain. I wanted to help, but the doctor said, don't touch him, he's a test subject." Taniguchi said she couldn't forget that child's face for 50 years. Unit 731 didn't just experiment on humans, it was also a massive biological weapon production facility. The complex produced 300 kilograms of anthrax bacteria and 500 kilograms of plague bacteria per day. These bacteria were dropped on Chinese cities in special bombs. The biggest attack was carried out on the city of Ningbo in 1940. Rice grains contaminated with plague bacteria were dropped on the city. Result: 50,000 civilians died. In 1941, wheat contaminated with cholera bacteria was dropped on the city of Chengde. 30,000 people died. In total, 580,000 Chinese civilians lost their lives in Unit 731's biological attacks. In 1944, Unit 731 launched one of its craziest projects, human bombs. In the final stages of the war, Japanese kamikaze attacks had become insufficient. Dr. Ishii was researching ways to use humans as biological bombs. Victims were infected with deadly bacteria, then sent to points near American bases. The goal was for the infected people to infect American soldiers. This project was named Maruta Squadron, Log Squadron. 3,000 people were infected with deadly bacteria in this way and released. August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered. Panic began at Unit 731. Dr. Ishii began burning all documents. He blew up the complex with dynamite. He destroyed the bodies of the victims. But then something unexpected happened. American intelligence contacted Dr. Ishii. General Charles Willoughby, MacArthur's intelligence chief, made this offer to Dr. Ishii. Give us the experiment data, and we won't prosecute you as a war criminal. Dr. Ishii accepted. 20,000 pages of experiment documents, photographs, and video recordings were handed over to America. In return, Dr. Ishii and all the doctors of Unit 731 were exonerated. None were prosecuted. So why did America want this data? The answer was simple. The Soviet Union. The Cold War had begun. America was at risk of falling behind the Soviets in biological weapons. Unit 731's data could close this gap. Unit 731's data was used in the American biological weapons program at Fort Detrick. The Japanese doctors' human experiments formed the basis of American biological weapons research. The most striking example was during the Korean War. In 1951 to 1952, the American Army carried out biological attacks on North Korea. The bacteria used in these attacks were based on Unit 731 data. The victims of Unit 731, meanwhile, were completely forgotten. Chinese and Korean governments requested compensation for decades. The Japanese government refused. In the 1990s, surviving victim families applied to Japanese courts. The court acknowledged the existence of Unit 731 but said no compensation would be given because it was wartime. In 2005, the Chinese government officially announced the number of Unit 731 victims, 300,000 people. This figure only included those directly killed. Civilians who died in biological attacks were not included. What happened to Unit 731's founder, Dr. Shiro Ishii? Thanks to America's protection, he lived a comfortable life. Between 1945 to 1956, he lived under the protection of the American Secret Service. He consulted for America on biological weapons. In 1956, he returned to Japan. He opened a private clinic in Tokyo. He died of cancer in 1959. He never expressed remorse before his death. On the contrary, he said he believed he had rendered valuable services to Japan. In the 2000s, research conducted using DNA technology revealed the dimensions of Unit 731 more clearly. DNA tests conducted in mass graves found near Harbin showed that 60% of the victims were children. The youngest was 3 years old. In 2018, the Chinese government turned the Unit 731 complex into a museum. The museum displays victims' personal belongings, experimental equipment, and testimonies of surviving witnesses. How do modern psychologists explain the Unit 731 phenomenon? According to Dr. Philip Zimbardo from Stanford University, Unit 731 is the most extreme example of mass psychological manipulation. Japanese doctors were made to stop seeing victims as human. Three factors in Zimbardo's analysis. Dehumanization. Victims were dehumanized by being called maruta, logs. Authority pressure. Doctors were deceived by justifications of scientific research and imperial service. Gradual habituation. They were gradually accustomed to brutality, starting with small experiments. Unit 731 was not alone. There were similar units in different parts of Japan. Unit 100, animal experiments and agricultural biological weapons. Unit 516, chemical weapon experiments. Unit 543, Air Force biological attack projects. A total of more than 600,000 people were killed in these units. Unit 731 also had a special target group, pregnant women. Japanese doctors were researching the effects of different diseases on pregnancy. Pregnant Chinese women were infected with different bacteria, and the course of their pregnancies was monitored. During childbirth, both mother and baby were vivisected. The goal was to study the transmission of bacteria to the baby through the placenta. More than 8,000 pregnant women were killed in these experiments. Where are the traces of Unit 731 today? Interestingly, some medical techniques developed at Unit 731 are still used today. Protection methods against freezing, organ transplant techniques, and even vaccine development methods. But these techniques were learned at a terrible cost: the lives of 300,000 innocent people. The Unit 731 phenomenon raises important ethical questions even today. Can human life be an excuse for any scientific discovery? Does wartime justify such crimes? Why did America use Unit 731 data? Is it ethical to use treatment methods developed with this data? For 12 years, 300,000 people were slaughtered in the name of science. Unit 731 wrote one of humanity's darkest pages. And most terrifying of all, these murderous men were never prosecuted. Dr. Shiro Ishii and his team lived freely thanks to America's protection. The victims were forgotten. Even today, we don't know the names of most Unit 731 victims. They remained only as test subject numbers. So what should we learn from this story? How dark human nature can be. The limits of atrocity committed in the name of science. And most importantly, the forgotten victims when there is no justice. Unit 731 is not just an event of the past. It's a reminder that we must remain constantly vigilant about human rights, because forgetting is enough for such atrocities to repeat. Share your thoughts on this topic in the comments, and don't forget to follow our channel for support. And what about you? What would you do if you were confronted with this terrible truth? Would you remain silent, or would you fight for justice? The memory of 300,000 victims awaits the answer to this question.